So I wanted to show everyone the new Hilltop extension. It's on Red Trail, it has second section. So as you come down the hill and you start to bank left here, the original path bends back to the left here a little bit tighter, and so the extension actually widens that turn considerably and you don't lose so much speed. So you come through this section here. Typically I would do this on my bicycle, but I didn't have my bike today, so I may get that back out a little bit later. So you climb up this slight incline. It's 3 to 5 degrees. Now you don't really want more than 10. So you get to this crest here, and as you can see, you've got a spectacular view here. And a lot of the times these extensions are just for that purpose. They don't really add much to the distance, but the scenery is really nice. So I use these little orange flags a lot. They're very handy to have. It helps me figure out how I want the trail to go and what works and what doesn't. If I make a mistake, I just pick up the flag and move it a little bit. What you don't want are really tight radius turns. Sometimes you can't really avoid it. In those cases, you don't want them back to back. So a tight radius turn would be 8 feet in diameter or less. Or 16 feet is an ideal turn. And so you come along this side here. Eventually, we'll put a little bit of a ledge on this to make it to where it doesn't feel like you're falling. So you get to the crest of the hilltop, and again, you have this spectacular view, 360 view of all of the property here in the back corner of the Arboretum property. And I've been wanting to do this for some time. Just got back to it. Winter and early spring are really the ideal times to trail build because you can really get a lay of the land. There's not so much foliage. So this time of year and really early spring, in fact this spring, I would say probably March was when I started. Built a lot of the trails that you're seeing here in the distance. You may not be able to see the little flags, but we have probably laid 700 plus flags this year. And that'll help us in spring when some of the leaves have really blocked a lot of the, or covered a lot of the trails. So once you get to the hilltop here and you turn slightly left, you go down this somewhat, it's an off-camber decline, or if you're going the opposite direction, obviously it's an incline, and it's about 7 degrees, so not too bad. This is a place where we'll put some attention to put a ledge on this, but for now this will work. Climbing it would be pretty difficult because the ground is really loose, but eventually once it gets packed down it'll be smooth and not so bad. So you come down this hill. You probably would be going maybe 12 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour. And you have this, what I would consider somewhat of a tight turn. So we'll bank this to give you kind of a better angle of the hill. That's what 7 degrees looks like, 7 to 8 degrees. So you come through this turn here, this bend, and you have a slight incline again. You're looking at probably 5 degrees here. And this is a pretty typical bend in a trail. Not too bad. It's about a 16-foot diameter. Nice sweeping. Usually when I'm building trails, I try to make the trail 36 inches at least. In this case, it was very simple to do. As you can see, the land is pretty open. And so you come back onto the original trail. You have somewhat of a tight bend back to this turn. So we'll eventually maybe address that with either a slight bank or something like that. And so this is the trail. Now, how I built it is basically the day before I'll flag out a section that I feel like is what I want to add on to, or where I want to build, and get a good idea of if that's going to work or not. And then the following day, or within a few days, I'll come back out and I'll just take another walk of where I flagged, and just to make sure that it really does flow well. For me, it's a lot. 2 trails is flow, because most of your riders really want something that flows and not super technical. Hill climbs, climbing over logs and things like that. So we try to offer a variety. So once I've identified it using these flags, then the day of the trail build, then I'll go in, remove the debris by hand. The more time you spend here building or removing the limbs, like these limbs over here on the left, the less time you have to spend afterwards cleaning up. Because what will happen if you leave that debris on the ground is the trail will be really bumpy, and it'll also feel like to the rider that it's not a very good trail. So if you're wanting user adoption, people that want to ride this trail, try to make it as smooth as possible to start with. Because as wheels start riding on it, or people start riding their bicycles on it, it'll flatten out and smooth out a lot faster than if you left that there. So once I've done that, once I've removed the debris by hand, as much of it as I can, then I go in with the chainsaw and remove any obstacles that need to be addressed, or that I can't remove by hand. I try to avoid removing trees. Anything I can do to try to keep or prevent from doing that, I do so. In fact, I'll even redirect the trail slightly to make sure that I don't cut down anything larger than a 3-inch tree if I can. So once I go through the trail and I cut all the trees down and get them flush to the ground, or the stumps flush to the ground, then I come back through with my lawnmower. So anything less than a 1/2 inch, I'll take this lawnmower here and I'll mow it down. The mower, a lot of people don't use mowers when they're building trails, but I do, because it makes the trail, it makes it easier to cut down everything. It makes the little saplings and things like that, it takes care of all those. And I can identify other small sticks and things like that that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So it really does a lot. It makes work really easy, and there's very few times when I couldn't use the mower to do that. On the Hayes property, I've used it pretty much exclusively. And it does a great job. It makes it to where people can see where the trail is without even someone raking it. And that's another thing. A lot of trail builders are against raking, and I agree when it comes to maintenance. But for trail building, raking is essential, because you get all these little sticks and things like this that are everywhere, like this. It gets those out of the way. So once I mow, then I go back with the rake and I clean up the areas where I found piles of small sticks. And then later on, after wheels have been on it, people have been riding, then I'll go back and clean up sections like this, where you've got these small hilltops that it's kind of hard to see on the video, but go back and remove those and smooth those out with a little tiller I bought this year for the volunteers. It's a little 2-stroke tiller that I carry around. It's about 25 pounds, and it makes light work of all these banks and berms, and smoothing out areas like this, putting ledges up. So that's looks like 9-minute video. I hope you guys get out here and enjoy it before winter really sets in. Happy riding.